Well, I would say I told you so, but, I don't call myself a trusted member of the media for nothing.
Hello, I started this gangsta shit. And this the motherfucking thanks I get. Hello, I started this gangsta shit. And this the motherfucking thanks I get. Hello.
If you're enjoying this content, hit that subscribe button. Join us. All right, come on in, kitty. Sit down and let's discuss this treachery. Welcome to Comic Artist Pro Secrets. My name is Ethan Van Sciver, 27-year veteran of this completely collapsed comic book industry, world's most charming, elegant, eloquent, and yet humble man. Great big Star Wars fan, trusted member of the media, creator of Cyberfrog, and here we go. I would tell you, I told you so, but I'm not that kind of a guy. You already know that. It's implicit in the fact that, I am a trusted member of the media. I'm going to be right about most things. This is DC Comics Bloodbath Part 2. Electric Boogaloo, Attack of the Clones, I don't really know, but, Bloodbath Part 1, The Phantom Menace, happened about 3 months ago, and it was presaged by the fact that AT&T purchased Warner Brothers, DC Entertainment, DC Comics, and because of their massive, staggering debt, had to figure out what they wanted to do with the publishing arm of their company. And the people who invested so much of their money, we're talking about billionaires, all came forward and said, hey, cut the fat. Let's get rid of some of these people. Some of these people who are not, who are not contributing to making us billions and billions of dollars. Let's get rid of them. And so the eye of Sauron, as it were, AT&T turned itself towards the vestigial tail that was DC Comics and decided to start laying people off. And first to go was Dan DiDio. That was like cutting the head off the snake. Dan DiDio, in my opinion, was doing good things at DC Comics, but had maybe become a little bit too controlling. They got rid of him, and then they proceeded to go through and, it was a red wedding of sorts. They got rid of Bob Harris. They got rid of many others. They got rid of Andy Corey, which was great. We all cheered and applauded when they got rid of Andy Corey because he was the singular SJW gatekeeper of an editor at DC Comics. He was anti-white. He was super woke. He was hiring some of the worst people on the face of the earth. He actually hired Zoe Quinn to come in and work for DC Comics. So obviously this guy had to go. He did. We won that fight. He's gone. But look, there was a period of calm, 3 months, and now it's back to the bloodletting again. More people are going. Now, why? Why was there a period of calm? And why did we know? How did we know? When I told you that there was going to be more firings, that this was just the beginning, that it would happen again in November. How did we know that? Well, the government, they were handing out loans to businesses, and they said basically, look, because of COVID-19 and the pandemic and the fact that we're asking businesses to close down, here's a big pile of the taxpayers' money, or maybe it's your money back. Here's some of it back. You can either repay it. It's either a loan or it's a grant. It's a grant if you promise not to fire any of your staffers. So for 3 months during the pandemic, everyone seemed like they were safe. Everyone had work to do. And indeed, the people who were laid off at DC Comics Bloodbath Part 1, they were told they could stay for 3 months. They were told they could stay and receive a paycheck for 3 months. Bob Harris, by the way, said, screw you, I'm leaving right now, and he did. He fled back to New York in disgust. I'd love to talk to him and find out what his take on all of this is. But others stayed, and then, by the way, just recently again, and probably because this was coming, DC Comics said, we're going to give you guys another 3 weeks. We're going to let those of you who we fired stay for another 3 weeks of pay. Probably because they knew this was coming and this was going to be brutal. And here it is. Here it is. You're allowed to fire people now, unless there's another loan coming in. Maybe there's another situation that's right around the corner. But take it in between now and then. Fire everybody. That's what's going on. DC Comics Bloodbath Part 2. More senior DC staffers laid off. Oh no. DC Comics owner Warner Brothers went through another round of layoffs this week, and while the focus was on the East Coast, as opposed to the recent West Coast of Burbank culling. That has meant that a number of DC Comics staffers have been informed that they will also no longer be working for the publisher. DC has already been through a swath of senior figures, a swath of them, cutting through them like the Grim Reaper with his scythe. How do you pronounce that? Being let go 3 months ago, and they are suffering the same again. Oh, suffering. All right, well, this is the case. Now, we're gonna go through. We're gonna see some of these people. It's kind of sad that they're going. Other people, maybe it's a good thing. The announcement that Marie Javins. Now, this was a big trick yesterday. All right, so Marie Javins was appointed the EIC suddenly and out of the blue. Marie Javins a few months ago was given the role of co-EIC along with another woman named Michelle Wells. And I don't know what the reason for that was. Like, why? Like, so Bob Harris leaves and you have two women come in, and does it take two women to do a man's job? That's one way of looking at it. Is it about the gender wage gap? I mean, is it because you can get two women for what you were paying Bob Harris? That's another possibility. These are questions that could be asked. In any case, it's clearly a cost-saving measure. That's what AT&T is trying to do. So fire the men, hire the women. Maybe these are all questions. You can ask AT&T and say, are you paying these people less than you paid the men that you fired? I certainly do hope so. Marie Javins is the new editor-in-chief of DC Comics, and everybody, there was an incredible flood of people celebrate, like, oh, Marie Javins, hooray, we're so happy for you. Can we work with you? This is kind of what they do, of course. Bleeding Cool picked up on it. Comic creators react to Marie Javins being named editor-in-chief, and they actually do call them suck-ups here. Suck-ups, which is what they are. You'll get a lot of messages that'll come out from the usual suspects. Oh, congratulations, you're going to do a great job. We know you're going to do a great job. This is just great news for everybody. But was that news a head fake? Was that bit of news some positivity, some false positivity before the other fist comes around? And I think it was. The announcement that Marie Javins was the new editor-in-chief of DC Comics went wide. Boy, I'll tell you, Bleeding Cool with their ads, ridiculous. And reported simultaneously, a Deadline, Variety, and Hollywood Reporter indicating that Warner Brothers corporate communications was involved with the release, and that it was an attempted distraction, leading with a positively spun headline in the knowledge that bad news would be leaking out shortly. And as a result, informed sources have told me that a number of DC Comics staffers were also been told, good job, Rich, garbage tier, that they are being laid off. Many people asked, with Marie Javins elevated to full EIC, what would happen to her former co-EIC, Michelle Wells? That is the question. Michelle Wells, we previously thought that this was going to be a joint exercise here with these two sharing responsibilities. Marie Javins, more experienced, having worked in the comic book industry with the big boys for decades as a colorist, a writer, an editor. And she knows what she's doing. She knows about superhero comics. And then we have Michelle Wells, who came out of nowhere, just out of the blue, and she was going to do, more of the YA novel stuff. We thought that they were going to share responsibilities, so this is kind of a surprise. And here is the answer, which is amazing. I understand that DC Comics has informed the following employees that their contract with DC Comics will be ending. And here we go. These are the people who are now on the chopping block. Adam Phillips, Director of Marketing Services at DC. After 26 years of working with the publisher, after being an editor at Welsh Publishing Group and an editor at the Consumer Electronics Monthly and Video magazine. Interesting. Okay, you'll have to excuse the screen here. It's jumping up and down because of ads. Stuart Schreck. Now, this is a guy that I knew. I know Stuart. Sales manager at DC Comics after 21 years with the publisher, after managing a comic book store in New York. This is shocking. I mean, these are people, when I say that they are not cutting the fat, cutting Andy Corey is the fat. Get rid of that guy. I even think Bob Harris was unnecessary. He was kind of redundant already. Stuart Schreck, that's amazing. But this is the big one that kind of surprises me. Fletcher Chu Fong. Fletch, beloved. Everyone loves Fletch. Fletch is the events director at DC Comics, and here might be the reason. It might be the case. The comic book conventions are pretty much over with. There aren't going to be comic book conventions that require Fletcher Chu Fong to direct. And Fletch was great. I mean, when DC Comics was having a convention, he would find out that you were going, or if DC Comics was appearing at a convention, he'd find out that you were going, and he'd organize with you to sort of say, hey, do you want to do panels? Do you want to do booth signings? Everyone loves Fletch. I still love Fletch. He's a nice guy. Lost his job, 18 years, the publisher. And there will be it's a bad sign for comic conventions. If that's part of your business, I mean, this is devastating in many different ways. If it was part of your business, as it is for most artists, to go to comic book conventions and do commissions, sketches, sell copies of your comics, anything like that, that is all coming to an end. And Fletcher Chufong here, his firing is suggestive that that prediction, which I also made, is true. Sandy Yee, SVP, Senior Vice President, Global Franchise Management, over 9 years at DC Warners. She's gone. Lisette Osterloh is gone. And this is the big one right here, folks. Michelle Wells. Michelle Wells. So her time as co-editor-in-chief opposite Marie Javins was short-lived. Vice President, Executive Editor, DC Children's Young Adult. I don't understand. Did Marie Javins just basically say, I can do that too? Because that's clearly the direction that DC Publishing, if it is going to stay, means to go in. Or, in a very short period of time, did DC Comics come to the conclusion that they are unable to sell this kind of You Bring Me the Ocean, Gotham City High, or whatever these teenage YA novels, young adult novels, not working out for them. So they just decided to say, hey, Marie Javins, you can do both jobs. We'll still do YA novels, but it won't be that important. This is interesting. The fact that Michelle Wells went means that my assumptions about DC Comics publishing, staying around for a long time but publishing YA novels, was probably invalid, incorrect, and it looks like DC is probably going to mostly do what they've always done, but much less of it, and eventually they're going to close it down. That's kind of my suspicion from this one firing here. They don't see a future in publishing at all. They can't make these YA novels sell using their own characters. Remember, AT&T, all they want to do is build a streaming service. They didn't want to get involved in this. They didn't want this vestigial tale, DC Comics Publishing. They didn't want it. They wanted to. They don't want to make pamphlets, magazines. They don't care if they're political, if they're not political. It makes no difference to them. There's just no money in it. And then we've got Alex Carr, group editor at DC Comics. He does the Justice League titles. I mean, that's pretty shocking after 2 years at DC. After working for Amazon UK and Amazon's Jet City Comics line. So a new hire. I don't think I ever met Alex Carr, but another group editor, down the drain. That means they're going to be publishing fewer books. You're going to see more of these names come out, and more editors, I think, are going to go, because they are going to be publishing fewer books. But these are the big names. These are senior staffers, that are going. So let's see. Bleeding Cool says, however, no official statement has been made, and DC Comics is not returning emails on this matter. But I understand that there are 2 others as well, totaling 9 staffers. I wonder who those 2 others are. I guess we'll wait and see. As before, what is notable is that, again, it is individuals with the most experience, the longest standing status at DC Comics, who are most likely to be made redundant, with DC losing centuries of combined experience and knowledge this year as a result. The first 3 in the list above have 65 years experience at DC between them. And the reason for that is because, again, these guys probably are highly salaried. So let's get rid of them and let's bring in people who we don't have to pay as much. And that is where they're going. They're just cutting costs all around. And almost everybody is redundant when you're only going to be publishing about 12 books a month, which is where we're going to end up. So these are the people who were fired previously, and this is just, Bob Harris, Mark Doyle, Bobby Chase, Andy Corey, Brian Cunningham, great editor, gone, Hank Canals. This is just, if you worked at DC Comics ever, Jonah Weiland created CBR, came over to work for DC, you're out of here. This guy's a millionaire. You're out of here. All of these names, if you worked at DC for any period of time, this is shocking. That DC Comics no longer employs these people. And as of this month, they will no longer be there. They will no longer, I think they're all working from home anyway, but they'll no longer be working for DC. So this is the end of this is the end. I keep saying it, and people go, "No, Ethan, no. How could it be?" Well, for 3 months, everything seemed like it had been all right. Well, if DC Comics is no longer around to the same degree that they were, competing with Marvel Comics, if DC Comics is not part of the direct market will crumble. If DC Comics is looking to produce very few books and to put them into bookstores and Target and Walmart, we've seen how that's gone. It's cute, but it is not the direct market circa the last 10 years ago. Even that it's not a sustainable business. It's not going to be able to feed and employ thousands of people, and that's where we're going. Marvel is going to start making announcements like this soon. That's what I predict, and I think it's going to happen this month, guys. I think we're going to have a Marvel Comics bloodbath this month, and they're already starting to fire senior executive people over at Marvel Comics. We've seen that happen already, so get ready. John Nee is gone from Marvel. Get ready, it's going to be a game of dominoes over there as well. And what can I say? Does it feel good to be right? I mean, these people, well, yeah, it does. It feels pretty good to be right. And this is all happening not because of COVID. This is what they'll want to tell you. This is happening because the comic book industry slowly degraded itself from the inside. They started to hire and support radical left-wingers who changed their content and chased the customer base away in pursuit of a customer base that is not interested in comic books. They would rather have women and LGBTQ people and more people of color and all this stuff. That's what they're interested in. They're interested in the demographics, in owning, changing, being proud of the demographics of their comic book audience, rather than just saying thank you for buying our comics. They wanted, they wanted something that they couldn't have. And because of that, comic sales shrunk, and because of that, DC Comics and Warner Brothers, they sold themselves to AT&T, and because of that, AT&T is not interested in publishing or unprofitable magazines, and because of that, all of these people are getting fired. And because of COVID, they got 3 extra months of pay. So maybe the pandemic turned out to be a good thing for these staffers. Thanks for watching. If you wouldn't mind, hit that subscribe button, ring the bell for notifications, and let's get ready. It's going to be, now that November's here, this is going to be a lot more interesting. A lot more of these articles are going to be coming out, a lot more news regarding the death of the comic book industry, and I'll be right here to tell you about it. I'm not going anywhere. Don't worry, everyone. Thanks a lot. See you again soon with another video. Hey, I got a P.O. box. Want to send me some mail? Send it to Ethan Van Sciver, P.O. Box 607, Marlton, New Jersey, 08053. And I'll probably open it up on the live stream. Thanks very much, everyone. Hey, you want to follow me on Twitter? Are you sure? Well, if so, I'm at Ethan Van Sciver. That's at Ethan Van Sciver. See you there.